The House Committee on Elections will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Here.
Vice Chair Busey. Representative Isaac. Here. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Here. Representative Raymond. Representative Swanson. Representative Toth. Here. Representative Terry Wilson.
Here.
A quorum is present. As a reminder, anyone present wishing to testify before the committee, please register at the kiosk located in the hallway. If you require assistance to register or testify, please contact committee staff. To accommodate all who wish to testify, there will be a 2-minute limit per witness during public testimony. Members, please remember to check out the publicly available comments. These comments are left by the public on each agenda item in our hearings. Comments are open until the end of our hearing and are posted upon adjournment. Members, we're going to vote out a few bills that we had heard previously. Chair lays out House Bill 5430 by Wilson as pending business. Members, this is the bill we heard previously relating to the declaration of a candidate's ineligibility on the basis of filing an application for a place on the general primary election ballot or for nomination by a convention with more than one political party. Chair Shaheen moves that HB 5430 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it does pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey. Representative Isaac. Aye. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Aye. Representative Raymond. Representative Swanson. Representative Toth.
Yes.
Representative Terry Wilson.
Aye.
There being 5 ayes, 4 absent, the motion prevails. Chair lays out Senate Bill 901 by Colcourse, a companion to House Bill 5430 by Wilson. Members, this is the bill we heard previously relating to the declaration of a candidate's ineligibility on the basis of filing an application for a place on the general primary election ballot or for a nomination by convention with more than one political party. Chair moves that SB 901 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it does pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey. Representative Isaac. Aye. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Aye. Representative Raymond. Representative Swanson. Representative Toth.
Yes.
Representative Terry Wilson.
Aye.
There being 5 ayes, 4 absent, the motion prevails. Chair lays out SB 2964 by Hughes, companion to House Bill 569 by Busey. Members, this is the bill we heard previously relating to the opportunity to correct certain defects in an early voting ballot voted by mail. Chair moves that SB 2964 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that it does pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey. Representative Isaac. Aye. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Aye. Representative Raymond. Representative Swanson. Representative Toth.
Yes.
Representative Terry Wilson.
Aye.
There being 5 ayes, 4 absent, the motion prevails. Chair lays out House Bill 3918 by Ms. Plesa as pending business. Members, this is the bill we heard previously relating to information on local regulations governing the placement of political signs in a municipality. Chair moves that HB 3918 without amendment be reported favorably to the full House. A recommendation that does pass to be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Shaheen.
Aye.
Vice Chair Busey. Representative Isaac. Aye. Representative Morales-Shaw. Representative Plesa. Aye. Representative Raymond. Representative Swanson. Representative Toth.
Aye.
Representative Terry Wilson.
Aye.
There being 5 ayes, 4 absent, the motion prevails. Okay, members, we're going to start hearing bills. Chair lays out House Bill 4171 and recognizes Mr. D'Orazio to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. House Bill 4171 seeks to provide additional transparency in the curbside voting process. Section 64.009 of the Election Code governs curbside voting in accordance with that section. The Secretary of State has prescribed prescribed Form 765, which requires signature, name, address, and individual providing transportation to 7 or more curbside voters simultaneously. It also requires them to indicate whether they are assisting the voter in marking or reading the ballot in addition to transporting them to the polls. This means that a person could make repeated trips transporting voters in groups of 6 or fewer and avoid the identification which comes with signing Form 765. That's this form right here. I have been informed that this is not an uncommon occurrence, and I believe that some of the public testimony today will include some stories. House Bill 4171 amends the election code so that the information collected on 765 is required of each person who transports and assists curbside voters. It also requires curbside voters to provide the same information, including whether they are receiving, assisting to read or mark the ballot in addition to the transportation. This legislation only applies in curbside voting when the voter is unable to enter the polling place. It does not apply when the transporting voters who can enter the polling place. It also does not apply if the person transporting a voter is related to the voter within the second degree by affinity or the third degree by consanguinity. What this legislation will do is draw attention to any bad actors. If it is found that people are transporting dozens of voters and assisting them in reading or marking their ballots, it would be the first step to uncovering potential ballot harvesting operations facilitated by a lack of oversight regarding curbside votings. I am happy to answer any questions, and the testimony that we have is first person, and they will probably be able to clear up any other kind of questions that come up.
Thank you, sir. I'll let the record show Chair Busey present, and Chair recognizes Mr. Busey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I just want to, here's my question. Have you been able to meet with any disability rights groups when it's pertained to this bill? And I ask because there's a lot of cooperation around the state with using rideshare programs to get people to curbside voting. And so if I'm reading this bill right, we're going to have like the Uber driver who's just being utilized to take someone with disability to go vote curbside, now having to fill out a form, and I just feel like we're going to be like, they're not going to want to do that. They're not aware of the situation. They're just an Uber driver taking them. And I know this for curbside specifically, but it is utilized. So I'm just curious if you met with Secretary of State or disability rights groups, and if not, if you'd be willing to do that before we, get too far forward with this bill.
No, I have not personally met with the Secretary of State. And this legislation was based on, eyewitness stuff. We had a van come up, even at our location, 6 people. They would leave, come back, 6.
Sure.
Leave, come back, 6. And that's what.
All doing curbside in those situations?
All doing curbside.
I just want to make sure that we're not going too far, that we're hurting, tools that are utilized for individuals that don't have cars and have disabilities. So I hope you'll work with us on looking at some of that.
Yeah, your point is well taken.
Thanks,
for
sir.
bringing that up.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, sir, very much. We'll reserve your right to close, and we'll go to public testimony. Chair calls Kathy Hagler, representing herself. Welcome, ma'am. We show you registered as Kathy Hagler. You're here representing yourself, and you're here to testify for the bill. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
well, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. House Bill 4171 is an easy bill for me to support. The current law requires that the driver simultaneously assisting 7 voters or more for curbside voting must provide information. There is an SOS Form 7-65 where that information is recorded. There's 2 easy ways to get around this law. First of all, you bring 6 or fewer people in every carload of curbside voters, and it'll never invoke the necessary paperwork, or bring 7 or more people, but only have 6 curbside vote and have the rest go inside to the polling place to vote. 4171 is a simple fix that will require every driver to complete the form regardless of how many curbside voters are in the car, except, as Representative explained, it would not apply to family members. And it would only be unrelated drivers bringing curbside voters to the polls. So the current law already requires drivers to say whether or not they are providing assistance, and this would not change in the bill. And I, of course, appreciate people who want to drive voters to the polls. We just want to know who's helping who and whether or not they're assisting the voter, but only when they're not family. So if it's not clear to you, if you have any questions, I'm hoping SOS will be able to answer any of your questions, but I'll try.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Members, any questions? Thank you very much, ma'am, for
Thank you.
being here. Chair calls Veronica Worms, the Texas Civil Rights Project. Good.
Yes. Yeah.
Ma'am, I show you registered as Veronica Worms, and you're representing the Texas Civil Rights Project, and you're here to testify against the bill?
Yes, sir.
So if you can help us do a little bit of administrative cleanup, we show you registered twice. Would it be okay if we delete the
Yes,
second
absolutely.
one?
Yes, if you could delete the dropped card. Apologies.
Okay, hold on just one sec. All right, our record is all set, and you may proceed.
Thank you so much, Chairman. As I said, my name is Veronica Worms. I'm here representing the Texas Civil Rights Project against HB 4171. Mainly, we are concerned that this bill will discourage people from helping others access curbside voting and also voters from using curbside voting. First, 4171 would require any person who drives a voter to use curbside voting to fill out a form, not only with their information, but with the voter's name and address. This is a violation of the voter's privacy, as a voter may not wish to share their registration address with the person driving them. For example, a person driving their coworker to vote curbside would then have to fill out the form listing the voter's address and compromise that voter's privacy. Some people take an Uber or Lyft to go vote and may not want to share their personal information with the Uber or Lyft driver taking them to the polls. This is especially true in areas without adequate public transportation or for people who don't have reliable personal transportation. Many organizations and services at both the nonprofit and local government levels offer transportation to the polls for elderly voters and voters with disabilities. Adding this requirement to Texas law will disincentivize people from using curbside voting if they have to share their personal information with a potential stranger. Second, we have capacity concerns, mainly that this bill will discourage people from voting curbside because it will take too long. This bill will require that a driver not only fill out a form every time that they transport voters to the polls, but a separate form for every single voter. This will inherently slow down the curbside voting process, as clerks have to facilitate drivers filling out all of these forms that are currently only required if a person is transporting more than 7 people at once. The bottom line is that we oppose a system that will discourage people from using curbside voting or helping those who do. There is no reason to impose this additional burden on the ability to vote curbside. We encourage the committee to focus on ways to improve the curbside voting process, such as increased compliance with signage requirements or greater investment in poll worker training on disability access, rather than advance a process that will just make curbside voting more burdensome. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Members, any questions? Mr. Toth?
Thank you, Chairman. Ma'am, what's your solution? You probably had the opportunity to hear what Representative DeRazio had shared up front, what was compelling him to bring this bill forward. What's your solution?
My solution is for the legislature to focus on making curbside voting actually more accessible to who need to use that option, rather than imposing additional burdens on Texas voters.
So again, I'll ask the question again.
Sure.
He shared a scenario where a van, same van, was coming with 6, 7 people in it over and over again. What's your solution to stop that?
I don't see that as a problem,
You
sir.
don't?
I mean, if someone is helping people vote legally using a legal means of voting,
Is the purpose
is
of, what's
not
the
a
purpose for
problem.
curbside voting?
what?
What's the purpose for curbside voting?
It's to allow people who cannot physically enter the polling place access their legitimate right to vote.
You don't see this as a problematic deal where you've got 6 people in a van, the privacy of the voting booth is not there. This was clearly not, curbside voting was clearly not intended for mass voting.
Curbside voting is clearly in place, respectfully, Representative, to allow people who cannot physically enter the polling place to exercise their right to vote. I don't see a problem with facilitating that.
So,
It's a legal process that the legislature put in place for a reason.
okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Let the record show Ms. Morales-Shaw is here. Thank you, ma'am, very much for
Thank you.
being here.
Chairman, will we be calling up SOS on this bill eventually?
Yeah, if you would like to. Is it all right if I waited till the end? Okay. Chair calls Karen Marshall, representing the SREC. Welcome, ma'am. I show you registered as Karen Marshall. You are representing the SREC and yourself, and you are here to testify for the bill.
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, welcome. You may proceed.
Thank you. I'm from Bear County, and I've been a voter registrar every year since 2011. I've been the alternate judge of the ballot board there, and I've been an election clerk for as many years. And I've observed a lot of things during this time. And, and is there a clerk here? So this bill would only slightly alter an already existing form that already is handed out to all the polls. So there's not even a fiscal note to this bill. All it does is cross out 3 words on the form, 7 or more, so that whenever there's a curbside voter, they fill in their name and address, and then their driver does as well. And I've spoken to the people who drive the retirement home bus. They have no problem with this. It's their job to do so. And everybody has to sign in at the poll anyway. You have to sign in right next to the address sticker. So this doesn't increase any or decrease any transparency. It increases the transparency in a part of the process that has been too opaque up till now. It just modifies that existing document, which you're getting a copy of, showing the modification. And it provides uniformity in the process and use, because you'd be hard-pressed to find any poll which actually used this form up till now if it was provided by the county election office, because the case for which it applied would rarely come up and was therefore forgotten or overlooked. Now, with its use required for all curbside voting, it will become a standard part of the process for each curbside voter. And then it'll become a part of the record, just like the sign-in sheets are at the polls, so that there will be more transparency. Who is using the curbside process and who is delivering these people to the poll? This does not in any way violate privacy, no more than signing in on the sign-in sheet as a voter. And everyone who votes is a matter of public record, and a separate form is obviously not needed for each voter. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here this morning. Chair calls Dr. Susanna Carranza, representing herself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Dr. Susanna Carranza. You're here representing yourself, and you're here to testify against the bill?
That is correct.
Okay, well, welcome. You may proceed.
All right. I said before, and I'll say again, do we have really nothing better to do than make it harder for folks to vote? Also, making it harder for anybody who currently assists somebody to vote, because there is some, oh my God, if somebody wants to assist multiple people, it's like, so what? Why would we make a driver have to disclose the information that, as described before, right? Disclose the address of the voter. Like, the driver will have to learn the address of the voter, because it clearly says the driver has to fill that information, not the voter. So if it's an Uber driver, it's the driver who's filling that information. It will also make the work of poll workers like myself much harder, because curbside already takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it because it's helping people. But this is not helping people. This is just adding work to the poll workers for no good reason. I find it really sad that some voters or folks calling themselves to be advocates for voting or something are lack imagination on how to help voters, and only come up with the scenarios of somebody who's trying to game the system because, oh, God forbid they're trying to exercise their right in a way that is a little bit more convenient and easier with disability communities, or like they're helping folks from a nursing home. Like, why would you want to have everybody have to write their information? So what if they need to come in 2 rides? Who cares? Please oppose this silly bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Chair Wilson?
Ma'am, were you in Higher Education Committee last night?
Yes,
Wow, can I go get you a cup of coffee?
I live 10 minutes away, so
Well,
I'm lucky.
I appreciate your passion and so forth.
And as you can tell, I'm a naturalized citizen, and yesterday also pissed me off. So
Oh, sure.
I can be
Yeah.
pissed off of
Yeah.
injustice in many places.
Absolutely. And do you, who did you state that you represent this morning? Yourself?
Me,
Okay.
just me. I decided to early retire, because I was fortunate enough to do that.
Wow, that is
and-
good.
And
What
and
are you,
work
about 39 years old? Or?
Pretty much, no.
Ah,
I have good genes
Well, thank you for being
and zero tolerance for injustice.
Oh, appreciate you. Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Chair calls Emily French with Common Cause Texas. Is, good morning, ma'am. We show you registered as Emily French, and you are here representing Common Cause Texas, and you're here to testify against the bill?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, welcome. You may proceed.
Thank you. I'm here to testify against HB 4171. We have not seen widespread abuse of the curbside voting system. I'm interested to hear some of the stories. I'm very involved and have not heard any. But it's already illegal to use curbside if you're not qualified to do so. I think allegations that that 6 or fewer voters that number was forgotten or overlooked. That is simply not true. I was here when the bill was passed, and the idea behind 7 or more was you don't want a whole van of folks. But I think forcing those who drive curbside voters to fill out a form is going to suppress voters with disabilities with no added benefit to security. I think it's transporting legal voters to vote legally. If I saw one of y'all walking into the polling place, I wouldn't go, "Oh my gosh, that voter's going in to vote. Can you believe they drove a minivan or a truck or whatever?" I'm worried that this could suppress souls to the polls. If there's a group of folks going to vote on a Sunday from a church, and they put everyone in one car for curbside for ease to the poll worker and the voters, I'm worried this could suppress that. Arlington, Texas is the largest city without a mass public transit system in the United States. Texans often rely on rideshare services like Uber or Lyft when we have unreliable public transit. This bill does not allow for what happens if you take a Waymo to the polls, but that's a side issue, I think. It would force an Uber driver to fill out a form if a disabled voter rides with them to vote curbside. This creates a level of liability that rideshare services might not allow and the drivers might not personally want. It would strand disabled Texan voters without a ride to the polls. That form would also include information about the voter that they might prefer to keep private, including their address. I do not see a problem with the current system, and I urge you not to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you, Ms. French, for being here. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4171? Oh, step back. Chair calls Ryan Jimenez with the Secretary of State's office. Hello, sir.
Hi.
I show you registered as Ryan Jimenez. You're with the Texas Secretary of State's office, and you're neutral on the bill.
That's correct.
Okay, Chair recognizes Ms. Morales-Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning.
This is relatively new policy. It came in with SB 1, if I recollect properly. We haven't really had time for it to play out for very long, but has the Secretary of State seen an issue with this? It helps inform our understanding of the problem.
Yeah, so we've received reports that it might be disproportionately used in different places. What the law currently does is it requires, excuse me, that this form currently says simultaneously 7 or more voters. What the law currently says is that if that form is filled out, it has to be filed with our office, and our office hasn't received a form like that. Like I said, we do get calls about it disproportionately being used, but to speak to the county, we don't have enough information on that, or the state, sorry.
Okay. So when you say disproportionately used,
Some voters complain, saying that they, or some voters, poll workers complain, or call us complaining, or stating that they've seen the same individual drive voters there in some counties, but that's about the extent of it.
okay. And has the SOS received any of these forms in compliance with the law at all?
None of the forms have been filed with our office yet.
Okay. Are they required to be filed with your office or with the local election
With
administrator?
our office.
Okay. Is there an enforcement mechanism for that? Since this is relatively a new law, like we haven't had it in place very long. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. That is relatively new. As far as an enforcement mechanism, I don't believe so. I'd be happy to get back to you on that to confirm it, but off the top of my head, I don't believe there's necessarily an enforcement mechanism.
There's general enforcement mechanism with SOS over election administration, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, sir, very much for coming up. Chair calls Molly Broadway with Disability Rights Texas.
I ran over here, y'all just called me. So y'all gave me my workout for the morning, thank you.
You register, we call you up.
In no time flat, man.
Good morning. So we show you register as Molly Broadway, and you are representing Disability Rights Texas, and you're coming here to testify against the bill.
Yes.
Do you need a second to catch
I
your breath?
do, kind of, yeah. I literally ran over here, so.
Well, you can proceed in like 5 seconds. How's
Okay,
that?
that's fair. Okay, so, thanks for the breath catcher. So I'm here, yes, my name's Molly Broadway. I'm here with Disability Rights Texas, and I'm here to testify against the bill. It is our opinion that after reviewing the bill, I'm not really understanding. I guess I'll introduce myself real quick. What my role is within the agency is I work on our voting rights team. My official title is Training and Technical Support Specialist for Voting Rights. So I go around the state informing individuals of what their voting rights are. I work with election officials to make sure that they are doing everything they need to do to make sure they're best serving voters with disabilities as well. That in itself is a mouthful. So after reviewing this bill, I appreciate the spirit in which it was being written, but I'm not even sure how it actually assists voters with disabilities. Like Representative Busey said earlier, a lot of our concerns are with people who utilize rideshare options to go to the polls. This will then cause individuals who are just trying to earn, do their job to sign off on affidavits and verification that they weren't necessarily prepared to do, and in my opinion, they don't need to do. This will also affect taxi programs, public transportation, and as another testifier currently said, people who are in residential facilities who come by large cars or small buses to come vote. This will affect that as well. And it will, I think, really provide intimidation to those doing the driving to assist.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Members,
Yes.
any questions?
You had all those questions for those other folks and not me.
Well, that's because your
I'm the
layout was really
disability
good. What you might want to do is talk to the bill author, Mr. DeRazio.
Absolutely.
And he's expressed a willingness to
Cool.
work with your organization.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much for being here,
Yeah.
ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4171? If not, the chair recognizes Representative DeRazio to close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. You know, again, on some of the information, every voter who votes on is on the public record. Their address is included, and if anyone requests a copy of the voter, you can do it with public information. But again, House Bill 4171 seeks to provide additional transparency in the curbside voting process. And I request that the bill be reported favorably. And with that, I close, and I'm looking forward to speaking with some of the people that have testified.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions?
Yes,
Ms.
quickly.
Morales-Shaw?
Thank you, Chairman. Really
Sure.
quick. Rep. DeRazio, have you considered that, I mean, the bill is, this policy is a very new policy, and we're already trying to change it before we've even made an effort to enforce it, apparently.
Okay, the policy, the timeline in the policy in 85, the 65th Legislature, Senate Bill 616 created Section 64009. So it's 85, 95, 2015, so it's about 30 or 40 years. In 2021, the 87th Legislature's second special session passed SB 1,
Right.
which established the requirements for what has become Form 765, prescribed by the
Correct.
Secretary of
Correct.
State.
That's what I'm
voters.
referring to.
Yes, and that's to transport seven or more voters. Does this affect voters who are voting in a polling place? No, it's a process exclusively for curbside voters. If two friends went together, they would not have to sign the form.
Correct.
And then whenever we heard the testimony with the Uber drivers, which made sense, it made sense to me. The Uber driver would have to fill out the form. But normally, somebody who has an Uber driver, they drop them off.
Right.
And if an Uber driver has to wait for an individual to go in and vote, they're going to charge them, and they're going to charge them quite a bit. So so you have some of those issues that we probably need to work out with some of the people that have testified.
And have you met with the Secretary of State about the enforcement issue of the current law?
Well, Mr. Busey brought that question out, and enforcement is well, to do the registration again, it becomes a process that the election judge would just incorporate into their activity.
Okay. I'll get with Mr. Busey and talk further.
All right.
Members, any other questions? If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Thank you, Mr. DeRazio.
Thank you.
Chair lays out House Bill 4508 and recognizes Chair Smithy to explain the bill, and the chair offers a committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The committee may recall that last session we passed House Bill 1217, which extended the voting hours for early voting and basically applied those on a statewide basis. So we have, and one of the changes was mandating that polls be open on Saturday and Sunday, the last weekend of early voting. So I've got, most of my counties that I represent are very rural counties with smaller populations. And, anecdotally, I'll just tell you that in a couple of those counties, they reported to me that, like on Sunday, the poll was open for 6 hours on Sunday, and not one voter showed up. And so, it's just the voters, there's just not enough voters to need that much time. But the real problem is that the clerk or the election official in the county couldn't find workers. You just can't find anybody that wants to work on a Sunday to basically sit there all day not doing anything. And so they were having to pay other county employees additional overtime and so forth just to get them to come and sit there. So it's been a real problem, and it just seems a waste in those counties. And so we have 89 counties in Texas with a population of fewer than 10,000 people, according to the 2020 census. And so this would just modify those rules for those smaller counties to where they would have to still stay open on Saturday, the last Saturday of the early voting period, but not both days. And that's what the bill does. It's just meant to try to reduce some of the costs that these counties have to pay, and also just the inconvenience of having to find workers to come in and work those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir.
We'll reserve the right
We'll
to close.
reserve your right to close. And we'll go to public testimony. Chair calls Kathy Hagler, representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Kathy Hagler. You're here representing yourself, and you're here to testify against the bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I change that to neutral?
Yes, you can. Hold on one
If we
second. Let us
could.
get that
I'm sorry.
done. That's not a problem
Now
at
that
all.
I've heard him lay it out.
That means the bill author did a really good job in his layout. Okay, I still show you as Kathy Hagler, and you're
Still-
representing yourself, but now
still
you're
me.
neutral on the bill.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was tracking along with the bill until I got to page 2, lines 25 through 27. In section 2, it says the day of extended voting hours must be agreed to by party chairs and posted in compliance with section 85007. I'm not concerned about the section that's about public notices. What I have a problem with is agreed to by the party chairs. So just a quick lesson in 3 kinds of primaries you can have, and a lot of times people don't realize that other counties might do it different ways. But you can have a joint primary, a contracted primary, or a non-contracted primary. In a joint primary, the parties are giving up a little bit of their sovereignty over their election by giving more authority, responsibility, and decision-making to the EA or county clerk. In a joint primary, the party chair shouldn't need to agree because the early voting clerk has the authority over every single part of early voting, which should include the day of extended hours. In a contracted or non-contracted primary, each party has a lot more control and authority over their own election, but they still should not have to agree on any part of early voting because that is not in their lane. The early voting clerk has all authority over early voting by mail and early voting in person, and it would be very nice for the early voting clerk to try and work with the party chairs on the extended hours for early voting, but I do not want a law that requires an agreement between the party chairs, because you can imagine sometimes the party chairs don't always get along really well. So this is an unnecessary burden that's put on the early voting clerk to have to referee that decision. So if these 6 words on page 2, line 26 were deleted, I could support the bill. Agreed to by party chairs and. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here. Chair calls Jennifer Doinoff, Texas Association of County Election Officials, and also representing yourself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Jennifer Doinoff. You are here representing Texas Association of County Election Officials and yourself, and you are neutral on the bill.
Yes, that's
All right,
correct.
well, welcome. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, and members. This is also an important bill to our association as we identified this as a priority this session. The intent of the bill is admirable and certainly makes sense in counties that border larger counties. Our members understand that challenges voters face when they share a media market with a large county and they see different schedules and different days through the media, and things can get very confusing. We also acknowledge that these inconsistencies across county lines can lead to at minimum, the perception of an unfair advantage sometimes to candidates on those ballots. However, in some smaller counties where elections are run by combo clerks that carry out duties of county clerk, district clerk, elections, and in some cases voter registration, the schedule is very difficult and unmanageable, while also being unnecessary. Our data shows that most of these counties under 10,000 didn't have the turnout to justify the extra hours and days, and the bill did cause a significant financial impact to those counties. This particular bill doesn't take us back to our pre-HB 1217 statute, because we do understand the author's intent and agree that these extra hours make sense in some counties. It simply lowers the bracket to counties with a population under 10,000, which are the counties served by most of these combo clerks that we've mentioned. We urge this bill to be passed out and sent to the floor for full passage. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you very much for being here. Chair
you.
calls Lauren Rogers, County and District Clerk Association, also representing yourself.
Good morning.
Hello, ma'am. I show you registered as Laura Rogers, and you are representing County and District Clerk Association and yourself, and you're here to testify for the bill.
That's correct.
Okay, well, welcome. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Laura Rogers, and I'm the elected county and district clerk for Sherman County.
I am also the elections chair for the County and District Clerks Association, and I am here to testify in favor of HB 4508. This bill is a top priority for our association, as well as for the 89 counties and approximately 333,000 taxpayers and voters. I run the elections for a county of 1,400 registered voters. I have 2 full-time staff members. I am also responsible for maintaining the county court, district court, land records, vital statistics, and voter registration for my county. In my county, we dealt with a protective order on the first day of early voting in November 2024 and received 2 orders to impanel a jury during early voting. This took away one of my 2 full-time employees from working the election, and the extended hours made it even harder to run the election properly. Small counties believe this bill balances voter opportunity and, in my case, ensures I don't have to sacrifice other essential functions like preparing protective orders and maintaining a jury list. House Bill 4508 allows counties below 10,000 in population to return to the 9 hours of early voting each day while still offering 1 mandated weekend day. The association and I have met with the author of House Bill 1217, and it was a pleasure to discuss the future of early voting with her. House Bill 1217 was a great bill for medium and large-sized counties. However, hyper-small Texas counties have struggled to implement the 12 consecutive extended hour requirement due to limited resources and staffing. There is a committee substitute to House Bill 4508, which provides a process for 15 registered voters to petition their county for extended hours to ensure Texas voters can continue to request additional hours if needed. This will also clean up some small parts of the filed version. Thank you for your consideration, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on for or against House Bill 4508? If not, Chair recognizes Chair Smithy to close on the bill.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll close. I'll just say that some of the criticisms are addressed in the substitute. So I think we've got a bill that's workable at this point, and it just seems like a common sense thing to do. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll close.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir, very much. The committee substitute is withdrawn. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Chair lays that House Bill 3639 and recognizes Representative Hayes to explain the bill. Correction, the chair lays out House Bill 3632 and now recognizes Representative Hayes to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That 3639 dealt with Bangladesh. All right. Last year, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a significant ruling in Republican National Committee versus Wetzel. The ruling held that federal election statutes preempt state laws, which permitted the receipt of ballots after federal election day. The Fifth Circuit's ruling directly invalidated Mississippi's law that allowed ballots to be received up to 5 business days after Election Day. This decision has implications for Texas' current law, which also permits ballots to be received after Election Day. Currently, Texan law permits mail-in ballots to be received and counted until 5 p.m. the day after Election Day if they were postmarked by 7 p.m. on Election Day. The court's findings provide some very interesting historical information. A few highlights include absentee voting began during the Civil War to secure the franchise of soldiers in the field. Early post-Civil War iterations of absentee voting universally required receipt by Election Day. By World War I, many states had adopted a variety of absentee voting laws. Even during the height of wartime exigency, a ballot could be counted only if received by Election Day, universally foreclosing the possibility of accepting and counting ballots received after Election Day. In the case of Voting Integrity Project, Inc. versus Boomer, the court found that as long as the state continued to receive ballots, the election was ongoing and had not been consummated. The election is consummated when the last ballot is received and the ballot box is closed. Justice Kavanaugh emphasized, to state the obvious, a state cannot conduct an election without deadlines. A deadline is not unconstitutional, merely because of voters' own failures to take timely steps to ensure their franchise. House Bill 3632 unifies the Texas election code to align with federal law while balancing voter access and election administration needs by it sets the ballot receipt deadline for 5 p.m. on the day after election to 12 a.m. So it moves it from 5 p.m. the day after to 12 a.m., that is midnight, on the day after Election Day. Secondly, it maintains the requirement that ballots must be placed for delivery before Election Day and bear a cancellation mark indicating a time no later than 7 p.m. on Election Day. And third, it applies the same deadlines to related election materials. Chairman and members, I yield for questions, witness testimony, and reserve the opportunity to close.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Chair recognizes Mr. Busey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hayes, just to be clear, you're changing the time with this bill from 5 p.m. the next day to midnight, so we're shortening the window to receive mail ballots by 17 hours. Did I get that right?
That'd be correct.
So I'm just trying to understand here, because the rules already require this to be done before voting closes. So if a voter follows all the rules, mails their ballot in time, but if it arrives after your new deadline, we're going to throw out a legit ballot that we know was cast in time because it's postmarked and everything else.
Well, it may not be a legit ballot, Representative, because the law is that if we're going to have an election day, the ballots have to be in by the close of election day, and that's why the 12 a.m. Deadline. That was the ruling of the Fifth Circuit.
Well, it's a legit ballot. It's just maybe the post carrier had a delay, not that the voter had a delay. They got it in time. They've got it postmarked. They got it sent in time.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, because we already checked that. But we're just saying, in case, I don't know, the postman's truck has a flat tire and they're a little delayed, we're going to throw out those ballots?
Well, I think it's like Justice Kavanaugh said. A deadline is not problematic merely because of voters' own failures to make timely steps to ensure the franchise. So if they know the ballot has to be in by midnight, then perhaps that will motivate them to do it, not wait till the last second.
Well, no,
to get it
I
done.
understand,
Or they
but
can go to the polls directly because the polls stay open to 7 p.m.
Well, why are they voting by mail in the first place? We don't know. There may be a reason that they're not going to the polls. But what I'm saying is,
we have
we're
a
talking
7
about a voter who fills out their ballot, gets it postmarked, gets it done in time under the law, and you're not changing that part of the law, but because the post carrier gets it there later, we're going to throw out a legit Texans ballot? That's what this bill seems to be doing. Has there been some crisis in those 17 hours that we're shortening?
Well, the point is you have to have the ballots in by Election Day. That's when the election is consummated.
Well, what does "in" mean by? Like right now,
In
if
the
you're already
hands of-
in line, let's say you're in line at 7 p.m. when the polls close, you still get to vote even if you don't vote until 1 in the morning because the line is so backed up. Is that
Right.
not correct?
Yes,
That's
sir.
not Election Day, but you were in line on time. This, under how we do our ballot by mail, as long as it's postmarked by 7 p.m. on Election Day, which would be the same thing as being in line by Election Day, except they've already filled out their ballot in this case, so they're actually ahead of that person in line as far as getting it done on time. So we're still following all that. This isn't changing that. We're just saying if there's some delay in the mail, we're going to throw out Texans ballots who voted properly. And I just don't understand why we're going to punish citizens' right to the ballot box because there's a delay in the mail, not because they missed any real deadlines around voting. But this bill takes away 17 hours to receive to receive the mail and receive these ballots, and then we're just going to throw out more Texans ballots.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who would think they could put a ballot in the mail at 7 p.m. and expect it to be there by
Well, right
5
now
hours
we
later.
allow
So
the next day. I mean, if we drop it in the mail and it's just going across town, that's not hard to understand that it could get there by 5 o'clock. It will be hard to get there by midnight, which is what I think we're doing here, making it harder for those ballots to get counted.
Right. Well, I think the bottom line is we have Election Day. There is a deadline for ballots to be received. What this bill proposes to do is to line up with the federal court's decisions on when ballots have to be received.
Well, and I would say the postmark and filled out meets that deadline. That's the whole point.
What if it got
They're
there
getting
5
done by
days
7
later?
o'clock.
Because the postman is notoriously late for getting the mail.
Well, and
to
I know
your
I know
house.
your bill doesn't directly impact, but we allow like overseas ballots. We allow military ballots. I mean, what is fundamentally different about the delay in mail? I just don't understand what we're doing here except making it harder to get legit ballots counted?
I think what we're doing is complying with federal law. Federal law preempts state law. We have a special exception for the members of
we
our
say that
military
across the
who are
board in this
across the
building.
world. That's going to be maintained. But we have, Texas has one of the longest voting periods in the nation, with
agree.
17 days of
We have to defend
voting.
it constantly around here, but I agree with you, and I'm glad you're proud of that, because I am too. I think we should have more access to the ballot box. But what this is doing is not impacting the voter. This is saying, I mean, the voter is still following the deadlines. You're saying if the mail carrier's late, I don't care about that voter's ballot anymore. We're going to throw it out, even though they followed the deadlines.
Well, there are
That's
two
what this bill
deadlines.
does.
One is the deadline to mail it in by, or postmark it by, and the other is for it to be received by. So all we're doing is changing that one received by to comply with federal law.
I'm just wondering why the 17, what is going to be gained by the 17 hours and what is going to be lost?
I think you have the conclusion of the election on election day.
Correct.
That way the
And
ballots can be
they're still
counted
gotta
on
cast their
election
ballot by
day.
the conclusion of the election on election day.
Yeah,
That
conclusion
doesn't
of the
change
election.
here. So we're just going to throw out more Texas ballots is what we're going to do.
Well, I would, maybe that's a good question for the Secretary of State to ask. How many ballots that are postmarked by 7 p.m.
They get thrown
come
out
in?
thousands,
Yeah, get
but
thrown
I'm
out
happy to bring them up.
because of that particular
Thank
item.
you.
I think it's a relatively small number, but it would bring certainty to our elections, and you would know who the prevailing candidate is on election day.
The mail ballots being received is late is the number one reason ballots are thrown out. And we hear over and over in this committee that one bad ballot being counted is too many. So I think thousands would be too many.
Members, are there any other questions? Thank you, sir. We'll reserve your right to close, and we'll go to public testimony. Chair calls Kathy Hagler, representing herself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Kathy Hagler. You're representing yourself, and you're neutral on the bill.
I should be against the bill. Did I say neutral? Okay, I'm going to go with neutral. All right,
All right.
thank you, Mr. Chairman and
You bet.
members. We're trying to comply with President Trump's executive order on election integrity, and basically, absentee or mail ballots received after Election Day should not be counted according to federal law. So that means we have to stop accepting ballots mailed by Election Day but received by 5 p.m. the day after Election Day. Ed Johnson is sick, but he's told me that that is his biggest regret, is that they extended it to 5 p.m. the following day. House Bill 3632, Section 1A1 says that the ballot carrier envelope must arrive by the time the polls close on Election Day, which is 7 p.m., or A2 says that it can arrive at 12 a.m. the day after Election Day, which is basically midnight on election night. So the language is confusing. You have two different deadlines on the same night. I'm not understanding why we would want to extend the delivery of the ballots past the time that polls close for voting in person, which is usually 7 p.m., unless extended by a court order. If early voting trends are being reported on the news after 7 p.m., that would allow a voter to wait until after 7 p.m. to mark their ballot and drive it down to the elections office, and that's potential fraud just waiting to happen. If a voter mailed their ballot before 7 p.m. on Election Day, it's still not going to arrive by midnight that night. If the voter decides to hand deliver their ballot to the main elections office, or if they use a common contract carrier, then the early voting clerk, are they going to have someone on staff available to receive ballot deliveries between 7 p.m. and midnight? They could not use a drop box because 86.0063A2 requires that the ballot be received by an election official who shall record the voter's name, and their ID must be shown, and the voter must sign the form. I had a lot of testimony here, and I don't have time for it, so that is why I gave you a handout, but I would trust you to read it. I think that what we have is Committee Substitute HB 1091, which has already been reported out of this committee, is a better bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Yes,
Chair calls Dr. Susanna Carranza, representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Dr. Susanna Carranza. You're here representing yourself, and you're testifying against the bill.
That's correct.
Okay, you may proceed.
Well, when I first read the bill, I had to read about 3 times to make sure I was understanding that really, like, oh, 12 a.m.? You mean like really election day technically? Because I couldn't believe somebody would do something that petty, in my opinion. That's a very petty change. Because the author might say, oh, but if a person put the ballot on the mail on the election day, they shouldn't expect their ballot to be counted anyway. Well, there's another case. If the voter put the ballot the day before election day, now all of a sudden you're going to have to expect the post office to work, guarantee, in only like the hours for the next day. So it's like you're already kind of disenfranchising a whole nother set of voters who might not have been the very last minute, but the window of time for the ballot to arrive will shrink even further. What if even days prior? So it's just like the period is already short enough. Why get rid of another business day for that? Really, who does that benefit? And then who cares if the voter was a little late? Yeah, some people procrastinate. If the law was already there, why fix something that's not broken? And executive orders are not law. So just because there is an executive order saying that you can do stuff doesn't mean that's the law. So the law is what we have right now in Texas. Don't make it harder for people to vote. Just let people vote. People have their timelines for whatever reason. Again, this bill is dumb.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you very much, ma'am, for your testimony. Chair calls Emily French with Common Cause Texas. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Emily French. You're representing Common Cause Texas, and you're here to testify against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you may proceed.
Thank you. In 2024, approximately 342,000 Texans voted by mail. This bill would make an already complicated vote-by-mail process even more difficult, creating unnecessary barriers for elderly Texans, voters with disabilities, pregnant women close to giving birth, and military members serving our country, although I understand there's a carve-out for that. Our postal service is great, but it is susceptible to all kinds of delays. Mail typically takes 3 to 5 business days to reach its destination within the United States, unless there's a hurricane, tornado, wildfire, or other common natural disaster. Even if we're not having one of those in Texas, it can affect a Texas voter's mail ballot if it happens anywhere along the route. It's important to give voters time to get their ballots in, balancing that against the finality of the election. What matters most is ensuring that every eligible voter who relies on vote by mail has their vote counted. Their voices matter, and this bill would make it harder for them to be heard. We do have a deadline for mail-in ballots. It's 5 p.m. the day after Election Day. This bill strikes me as trying to choose between cable news networks trying to report out a presidential or any other election as soon as they possibly can, pitting them against the voters, and I would say it's important to choose the voters in this instance. Currently, mail ballots must be received by 5 p.m. On the first mail delivery day after Election Day, and I think we should leave it that way. I voted by mail during law school. I'm from Wichita Falls. I'm a native Wichitan, and I remember friends who are also native Wichitans and I comparing like whose ballot's going to get there first. Sometimes an Austin ballot gets there before Dallas, depending on the distance. I just think it's really unpredictable. It's all luck of the draw, I think that it's not necessarily on the personal responsibility of a male voter because 2 people who put their ballots in the mail on the same day could receive totally different results.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? So you're referred to as a Wichitan if you're from Wichita Falls?
I think so, but it's very confusing with Kansas.
All right.
Yeah. Wichita Falls, and we'll have to ask Representative Frank what he
I will
says.
talk to Mr. Frank on the
Thank you
floor
so
today.
much. Yeah,
And
I
I will
appreciate
follow
that.
back up with you.
Looking
Thank-
forward to it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on for or against House Bill 3632? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Hayes to close on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I appreciate the sentiment. The mere purpose of the bill was to align with federal case law. And the case law says ballot has to be in by Election Day. We may not like that, but that's the law of the land. So that was the purpose, to just take the election code and let it comport with federal case law. With that, I close.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir, very much. If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Chair lays out House Bill 2139 and recognizes Representative Simmons to explain the bill.
Good morning, Chairman Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey, and members. It is my honor today to lay out HB 2139, which would help ensure that parents of young children and caregivers of disabled adolescents and adults are able to exercise their constitutional right to vote without putting their loved ones in harm's way. Current Texas law only allows curbside voting at the entrance to a polling place by qualified voters who are physically unable to enter a polling place or who would risk injuring themselves if they attempted to enter the polling place. Texas temporarily expanded access to curbside voting to Texans during the COVID-19 pandemic if they were showing signs or symptoms of the virus. Notably, Texas did this without compromising the security or integrity of our elections process. HB 2139 simply extends the current curbside voting law to two new groups of people: parents or legal guardians with children under the age of 12, and primary caretakers of an elderly or disabled person who is unable to care for themselves. If by entering a polling place, a voter in one of those two groups would leave their dependent loved ones without adequate supervision, then the voter would be able to request an election officer to deliver a ballot at the polling place entrance or curbside. Our right to vote is the most sacred right of our democracy. But that right is obstructed when Texans must choose between caring for their loved ones or exercising that right. Whether it's a mother with a new baby whose sitter canceled at the last minute, a father of a disabled teenager, or the devoted caregiver of a medically fragile grandparent, HB 2139 makes sure all of these people are able to exercise their right to vote without leaving their loved ones unattended and putting them at risk for harm. I believe we have a few witnesses here in support of the bill, and with that, Mr. Chairman and members, I'd like to reserve the right to close, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you. We'll proceed to public testimony. Chair calls Marliza Marin with Common Cause, Texas. Did you make that little girl get up this early?
Yes, I did. No, y'all changed it instead of Thursday, so we didn't have a babysitter.
We apologize. Ma'am, I show you as registered as Marliza Marin, and you are representing Common Cause, Texas, and you're here to testify for the bill.
Correct.
You really have a pretty daughter.
Thank you.
We'll see if she behaves today.
We will see, because it's been a rough morning. Okay. Good morning, Chair Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey, and members of the committee. I'm here to testify in favor of HB 2139. I've also brought my daughter, Rosalise, with me today. The first time I went to vote as a new mother, Rosalise was only 3 months old. And to be completely honest, it was a bit of a nightmare. I decided to make a quick stop by my local polling place on the way back from the grocery store, and it was a big mistake. It completely threw my daughter's nap schedule off. She had fallen asleep in the car, and on our unplanned stop, unfortunately, I woke her up. If you have ever been around a 3-month-old, you know how much they love to be woken up from their naps. Luckily, the poll workers were very kind and understanding with me. I hope to continue to bring my daughter with me to vote whenever I'm able to. My husband and I want her to be a lifelong voter. But getting her out of the house takes a lot of work. We have to get her dressed, do her hair, make sure her bag is packed with snacks and books, and put her safely in her car seat. This morning, on the way here, she actually threw up while we were on standstill traffic on I-35. I had to pull over. So that's why we're running a little late today. So even squeezing voting in between errands can have some consequences. HB 2139 would allow me to curbside vote from my car with Rosalise in the back seat. She can watch me participate in our democracy without the whole process of getting in and out of the car. It would be much easier to vote on my way to work or on my way home from the grocery store. This bill would improve the lives of many dads and moms like me. Please vote it out of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you very much for being here, and thanks to your daughter. Chair calls Jennifer Berger, representing herself. Good morning, ma'am. I show you registered as Jennifer Berger. You're here representing yourself, and you're here to testify for the bill?
Yes, that's
All right,
right.
well, welcome. You may proceed.
Good morning. I am for this bill. I actually work elections, and I'm a designated curbside clerk. I know from doing that work that the process is secure. It really does not vary from what people are doing inside the building. It just brings it out to their car. I also am a mother, and I have witnessed many a parent come in to vote and see the chaos that it causes. We try at our polling place to have things to distract the kids, but it would be so much easier in the car. I also, in my professional life, have had the honor to work with the disability community, and I know what a huge burden it is for caregivers, and also would approve access for those folks. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? You didn't want to bring your children with you this morning?
My child is now 20 years old, so
Oh, okay.
it would
Well,
not be good for me to carry him to the front.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chair called Mark Hoskins with Disability Rights Texas. Good morning, sir. I show you registered as Mark Hoskins. You're here representing Disability Rights Texas, and you're testifying for the bill?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, well, good morning. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Shaheen and Vice Chair Busey and Representative Lisa. To be very quick, Disability Rights Texas supports this bill. This bill makes it easier to vote, and especially for people that have people with disabilities with them, so they don't have to enter the polling place. We support it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir, for being here. Members, any questions? Thank you, sir, very much. Chair calls Veronica Worms with the Texas Civil Rights Project. Hello again, ma'am. I show you registered as Veronica Worms. You're here representing Texas Civil Rights Project, and you're testifying for the bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, welcome. You may proceed.
All right. We are thrilled to offer our support to HB 2139. To put it simply, this bill helps the helpers, as the late Mr. Rogers would have wanted. Our parents, legal guardians, and those who support our neighbors who are unable to care for themselves deserve a way to access the ballot in a manner that's safe for those they care for. This bill would allow for these voters to use the existing curbside voting system to vote while being able to fulfill their responsibilities in caring for others. Lack of child care or having someone depend on you for care should not impact anybody's ability to vote, and with this bill, these caregivers will not have to. We ask you to report this bill favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you so much. Chair calls Kathy Hagler, representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Kathy Hagler. You're representing yourself, and you're here to testify against the bill?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, you may proceed.
Thank you. I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness of expanding curbside voting to the parents of young children or primary caretakers. I do. But curbside voting and provisionals are two of the most time-consuming types of voters who will come to vote in person. I've listed in your handout all the different things that you have to go through in the process. But I think I could pretty easily process at least 15 to 20 regular voters in the time it takes to process one curbside voter. On a slow day in a constitutional election, that might not matter much, but in a primary or a general election, this bill would bring the polling places to a screeching halt. That is, unless the state wants to provide funding to hire an additional 2 workers per polling place to handle the demand this would create. We already believe there are people who are abusing curbside voting because they can. We're not allowed to answer or ask a question why they're voting curbside. We just have to do it. And we talked about a bill about that already in this committee. And we've heard testimony about a Houston radio station telling people if the lines are long, just jump the line and vote from your car at curbside. Of course, a disabled voter can always vote by mail if they can't enter the polling place without possible injury, but we accommodate the disabled because they want to vote in person with curbside voting. That's why we have this. Do you think that aunts and uncles might ever borrow a niece or nephew under 12 to skip the line and vote curbside? There's no statement in this bill that would require a person to sign a statement that they are the legal guardian of the child. How is this person getting through life without taking their child under the age of 12 with them into the grocery store or a restaurant or to church or club meetings? The 24/7 primary caretakers is a little bit more of a difficult situation, but this bill does not require any proof that the person is a primary caretaker. Expanding curbside voting is really not the answer. Please do not vote in favor of 2139. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Let the record show Ms. Swanson is present. Thank you, Ms. Hagler. Chair calls Dr. Susanna Carranza, representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Dr. Susanna Carranza. You're here representing yourself and you're testifying for the bill?
That is correct.
Okay, well, welcome.
And thank you, author, to, making a bill that allows me to be for it because it helps voters. So as a poll worker, I agree with the previous witness who said that curbside is one of the most time-consuming parts of the process. But it's worth it because it is time-consuming, but it's helping voters. And while the person say like, oh, if that's not the caregiver, or if you have a 12-year-old, you should be able to take them inside with you. What if that kid is having a bad day? What if they're sick that day? What if there's any other things? Or what if the person, that the kid, even though they're a kid, is just really not ready to be inside the polling place in that particular day for any other reasons because it's super crowded and you're afraid they're going to get sick that day. It's like, you don't know their personal stories. Why make it harder? Like, why not make it easier? So I love that this bill will help folks. You're supposed to, be helping families stay together, help families, encouraging families to, participate in the kids' lives. And participating in the kids' lives, somebody sometimes will be like learning that you can vote from the convenience of your car if things are not working out too well. So just please support this bill. It's a great bill. And so what if it causes a little bit more work for the poll workers? We're there to serve the voters, not ourselves.
Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here. Chair calls Valerie DeBille with the League of Women Voters and also representing yourself. Is Valerie here today? Chair calls Jennifer Doinoff with Texas Association of County Election Officials, also representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Jennifer Doinoff. You are representing the Texas Association of County Election Officials and yourself, and you're neutral on the bill.
Yes, I am. Thank
All
you
right,
very
you
much.
may proceed.
So we appreciate the intent of this bill, and our members are committed to helping curbside voters and want to help all voters who need this service to the best of our ability. But there are significant challenges to curbside voting, and you've already heard some of them. It takes a lot of time to curbside vote, and that's not just time that the voter that is doing curbside may be waiting in the car, but also time for the folks inside that are stopped in line to check a person in or get the equipment ready and get the equipment out to the car, which, by the way, is very heavy. And so I have had Clerks drop equipment on their legs and drop equipment out in the parking lot trying to implement this practice. And so we appreciate curbside voting. We think it's a valuable process that we do. And I think have some ways that we could work on curbside voting that we may bring in the next session. But expanding that at this point in time at every location in the county would be very challenging, and there would be a cost increase. And I heard somebody before say they're a curbside clerk, and so kudos to that county that has that many people in their polling location that can have a specific person to provide that service. In our county, it could be any of the clerks. And so it is very challenging. And so those are our comments on the bill.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank
Members,
you.
any questions? Thank you very much for your testimony. Chair calls Laura Rogers, with County District Clerks Association, also representing herself. Welcome back, ma'am. I show you registered as Laura Rogers. You're representing the County and District Clerks Association and yourself, and you're neutral on the bill.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. You may
Thank
proceed.
I'm Laura Rogers, and I'm the County and District Clerk for Sherman County and the Election Legislative Chair for the County and District Clerks Association, and we're here to testify neutral on the bill. As the mother of a special needs daughter who requires 24-hour care and cannot be left alone, I sympathize with other Texas parents who struggle to find caregivers for loved ones. I also have a second daughter who would have torn the place down if I had taken her inside to stand in line to wait to vote. It's always the second daughters. However, I'm also an election worker who has to find the parking spaces, personnel, and other resources that the increase of this curbside voting bill would create. I also have concerns over abuse and the delay that it might cause for other voters. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2139? If not, the chair recognizes Ms. Simmons to close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, HB 2139 protects Texans' right to vote by making sure they don't have to choose between that right and keeping their loved ones safe. As a mother of an immunocompromised child and a caregiver of a 90-year-old grandparent, it was often difficult to figure out what we would do for care. And so ensuring that people have access to voting and doesn't impede on their right to participate in the democratic process is very important to me. And we have done this for a really long time. We just want to make it easier for people who have a burden on them. So thank you so much, and I ask for your favorable consideration. And with that, I close. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good job. Members, any questions? If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill is left pending. Chair lays that House Bill 2253 and recognizes Representative Bojani to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey, and members of the committee for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 2253. Under current law, a political subdivision can only cancel an election for mootness, a term that is undefined in the statute. This leaves local governments without a clear, effective option to respond when disaster strikes and changes the circumstances. HB 2253 addresses this gap by giving authorities the ability to cancel election for measures if a disaster declaration has been issued by the governor within 90 days of the election. This bill ensures that local leaders can act in the best interests of their communities when disaster strikes without burdening voters who are already facing immense hardship. I will have a committee substitute for members that strengthens the bill by making 4 important clarifications. This bill will only apply to bond elections. Elections could only be canceled under disaster declarations that are related to natural disasters or imminent threat to the health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of the county. This would not include, for example, a disaster declaration on something like border security. A cancellation can only occur after an opening meeting and a vote by the Commissioner's Court or other relevant body. And lastly, election cancellation must be necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of citizens. For example, A disaster declaration may be issued for several counties before a hurricane hits, but only a few end up being ultimately affected. This clarification ensures that those affected counties can't cancel, unaffected counties can't cancel elections. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this important bill, as it will help protect communities in times of crisis. This bill provides a necessary and clear path forward to our local government, giving them flexibility to make the right decision for the communities. Members, this legislation passed last session out of the House and went to the Senate at the last week, so I didn't have a time to pass it over there. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I would humbly request the opportunity to close.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions? Just stay right there, Mr. Bojani. Is there anyone who wishes to testify on for or against House Bill 2253? If not, the chair recognizes Mr. Bojani to close.
Thank you, Chairman Shaheen, Vice Chair Busey, and members. I humbly request a favorable concession on this bill, and I close.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If there's no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The bill is left pending. I'm just gonna play his bill out. Yes, I've got his. So I'm gonna do Leach's bill.
Yeah. All right, the chair lays out Senate Bill 760 and recognizes Chairman Shaheen to lay out this bill on behalf of Chair Leach and to explain the bill.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Busey, and members. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out SB 760 before you today. Texas has provided seniors and individuals with disabilities the option to utilize a mail-in ballot for voting. Despite this, the voting rights of vulnerable populations are jeopardized as these individuals who are living away from their families can be exploited. Texas Election Integrity Protection Act establishes a criminal offense for government officials who intentionally issue an unsolicited mail-in ballot. However, under current state law, legal guardians of individuals residing in long-term care facilities are not alerted when their family members request a mail-in ballot application, as families are unable to prevent ill-intentioned individuals from manipulating their relatives. This shortcoming enables election fraud to occur. Senate Bill 760 seeks to prevent ongoing election fraud from occurring by informing long-term care residents, legal guardians, and powers of attorney of any mail-in ballot applications submitted by these individuals. You can wait for questions. Okay. Because I'm on a roll. Under the bill, this is Representative Leach, by the way. It says bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Under the bill, early voting clerks are required to provide written notice to HHSC of mail-in ballot applications when an address corresponds to a long-term care facility, including nursing homes, assisted living, and intermediate care facilities. Using this information, HHSC must alert the applicable long-term care facility of their resident's ballot application. Then the facility must ascertain whether the resident has a legal guardian or power of attorney in their records. If this is affirmed, this individual must notify the facility within 5 days of HHSC's disclosure. HHSC would be required to audit long-term care facilities to ensure that their process fulfills these stipulations. Nursing homes, or intermediate care facilities, and assisted living facilities that fail to notify guardians could have their licenses suspended or revoked at HHSC's discretion. This legislation is only applicable to mail-in ballot applications that are submitted the day of or after the legislation goes into effect. Additionally, the bill makes clear the bill only requires long-term care facilities to contact residents, legal guardians, and powers of attorneys that the facility is aware of at the time of HHSC's notification. Members, this has happened in 2017. An individual illegally assisted mail-in voters at a nursing home. Some residents expressed they were unaware that they had even signed a ballot. The perpetrator was eventually found guilty of 6 counts of voter fraud. SB 760 both protects the integrity of our elections and protects the coercion of one of our most vulnerable populations. Members, Chairman Leach is happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Chairman Sheen, and
Thank you,
the chair
Chairman.
recognizes Chairman Leach. if you have
No,
anything else
thank
to
you.
add.
That was great, Chairman Sheen. Thank you. I rushed over here, gave me a chance to catch my breath. Members, I'm happy to take any questions.
Chairman Leach?
Say it again?
Have you had any sleep since last night?
Zero. But
I
gladly
had 10
so.
questions for you, but I hear you're too fiery in committee this morning.
Well, just don't.
Members, any questions? All right, we reserve your right to.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr.
Did you have anything to add? I'm sorry.
No, thank you,
we
Mr.
reserve
Chairman,
your
and thank you, Chairman Shaheen, as well. I appreciate it.
Okay, the chair calls Veronica Worms on behalf of the Texas Civil Rights Project. Yeah, okay. Just to confirm, you're Veronica Worms. You are here on behalf of the Texas Civil Rights Project, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, Vice Chair.
You may begin.
All right. Respectfully, we have concerns about how this bill will affect the privacy of voters with disabilities and elderly voters. As written, the bill will require nursing homes and assisted living facilities to determine whether any resident who applies for a mail-in ballot has a legal guardian or anyone with power of attorney over them and inform that person of the resident's application. Voters who have medical power of attorney or other guardianship still have the right to vote under Texas law, and it would take a separate court order to strip them of that right if they were found to be mentally incompetent. Our understanding is that this bill is intended to protect voters with disabilities and elderly voters from being taken advantage of. But instead of accomplishing that goal, it just violates the voter's privacy by informing their guardian, who has no rights or authority in this arena, that the resident applied for a mail-in ballot. During the interim, TCRP works as part of the Election Protection Coalition, where we field calls from voters from all over the state and help them navigate the elections process in Texas. During the 2024 presidential election, the highest number of calls that we received were from voters that encountered disability access issues at the polls. To quote our report on the matter, of the 543 tickets resolved through the 866-R Vote hotline, 163, approximately 30%, were related to disability access issues. There are real issues facing Texans with disabilities who are trying to participate in the democratic process. We urge the legislature to focus on issues that are actually facing those voters, such as lack of curbside signage and increased poll worker education on disability accommodations, rather than this bill that would violate the voters' privacy. We ask you not to report this bill favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Thank you. Next, the chair calls Kathy Hagler. Ms. Hagler, you're Kathy Hagler. You are here on behalf of yourself, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair
You
Busey.
may begin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. The voters of seniors and the disabled are very vulnerable when they're living away from their families, and they can be easily exploited. Long-term care facilities can be fruitful grounds for ballot fraud. Facility employees can falsely submit applications and the ballot by mail without the resident ever knowing it, and the signatures will match on the application and the envelope if done by the same person. Or a ballot harvester might assist the patient in filling out the ballot, accurately reflecting their presidential vote, but then later casting their personal support in local races that the voter did not want to vote on. I have been in a nursing home and witnessed voters who could not understand a constitutional ballot and begged us to explain it to them, and we could not. Senate Bill 760, I'll go back to that. That makes me feel like there's a lot of other ballots that they don't understand and someone is filling it out for them. Senate Bill 760 will prevent election fraud in these types of circumstances by informing long-term care residents, legal guardians, and powers of attorney holders of any mail-in ballot applications submitted by these patients. Additionally, the bill would require the HHSC to audit long-term facilities to monitor compliance with the new regulations. I believe this is a big step in tightening the security of our ballots by mail, and I ask for your support for SB 760.
Members, any questions? Thank you, Ms. Hagler.
Thank you.
The chair calls Susanna Carranza on behalf of herself. You are Susanna Carranza, and you are here on behalf of yourself, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You may begin. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Susanna Carranza, and as you know, if a bill hurts voters, guess what I'm going to be against? And it's just so painful to keep hearing people coming up with all this ways that people are trying to scam each other. It kind of makes me think that all you can think about is how to scam each other, because, I'm not going every day by my life saying, there is a loophole in that bill that I'm going to try to exploit. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of almost everybody on earth. Like, they're not trying to find something to exploit. But rather, this bill will put a burden on reporting that is like unnecessary. It's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And also to say that a person from a nursing home is going to go out there and try to request and help a bunch of folks vote. Have you been to a nursing home? Like, have you noticed how understaffed they are? Do you think they're going to add to their responsibilities and their job duties to fill out a bunch of applications and fake a bunch of ballots? Like, that is just it just doesn't happen, and it's going to hurt a lot of folks who really need assistance. It will discourage people from assisting voters, and it's going to disenfranchise a population that's already disenfranchised in many ways, not only in voting. So just oppose this bill, please. Get more creative in ways to help voters and not hurt them. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Carranza. The chair calls Jeff Miller. You are Jeff Miller on behalf of Disability Rights Texas, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Thank you, committee, for the ability to be here today and to testify on this bill. Unfortunately, I am Jeff Miller. Disability Rights Texas does oppose the bill as it's written. We understand the concern about ensuring that voting procedures are pure and that people aren't unduly influenced. But if the issue here are people doing bad things, the bill should address the bad things being done by bad people. It shouldn't punish individuals in long-term care facilities simply because they're an individual in a long-term care facility. One question we have is what authority an early voting clerk has to notify anyone that somebody in a long-term care facility requested a ballot by mail? Does that mean that they have the ability to publish the list of everybody that requests a ballot by mail regardless of where they live? Or why are we just signaling out people with disabilities in long-term care facilities? Also, the issue of, so HHSC is notified and they notify the facility, and the facility has to determine whether or not someone has a guardian, which they may or may not have record of, but also if they have a power of attorney or a medical power of attorney, which most long-term care facilities aren't going to know. And so what is the purpose of notifying these people that probably have no ability to impact the voting right of an individual in a facility? Under Texas law, only a probate court sitting as a probate court can determine that someone is incapacitated and therefore remove their right to vote. Most people that have gotten, today when most new guardianships are formed, the majority of people retain the right to vote. So why are we notifying a guardian of something that they have no ability to stop? Same way with a power of attorney. I can revoke my power of attorney tomorrow or today or right now. So notifying my agent that I requested a ballot by mail can only serve one purpose, and that's to violate my policy, my privacy. If we really want to stop what's going on here, let's look at that. Disability Rights Texas is willing and right now to work with anybody to try to address this issue, but let's not treat people with disabilities differently than everybody else simply because they have a disability and are in a long-term care facility.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And I know in the past, myself, Disability Rights Texas, and Chairman Leach have all worked together on some really good election bills. So I won't speak for him, but I can assume that he's willing to sit down and work with you guys and try to make sure we come up with craft the bill in a way that is helpful.
We would be happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Members, any questions for Mr. Miller? Thank you, sir. The chair calls Emily French. Doesn't say EB. Doesn't say EB. Oh. You are Emily French on behalf of Common Cause Texas, and you are against the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You may begin.
Thank you so much. I am here to testify against this bill. I know that the intent is to protect seniors, but I'm a little concerned that this bill will actually disenfranchise them. I said many of the same things on the Senate side, but I'm afraid that this bill will create a coercive situation between someone in a care facility who has a guardianship order and that guardian. In my family, I vote very differently from my parents, who vote very differently from their parents. I think it skips a generation. We'll look into that genetically. But for now, and my parents are still very young and spry. Let me lean into the mic while I say that, and not anywhere near a care facility. But I think, in our family, if my mother asked me to assist her in casting a mail ballot for somebody that I do not think she should vote for, I would do it because I respect her right to vote. But I worry that when the guardianship, the person who holds the guardianship or the power of attorney is someone who vehemently disagrees with a parent, that they're going to, and it's like if I'm in the nursing home and this person is, my beautiful daughter, in the case of my mother, my beautiful daughter, and I pay all the bills, I bring friends and family to visit, I'm the one who controls the finances. I'm just worried that this situation gets coercive and will end up changing mail-in ballots for care facilities in the attempt to prevent them from being changed. I'm also worried that this will create a presumption of illegitimacy of ballots that come from nursing facilities and care homes. And part of that is dealing with the segregated ballots. I also don't know how counties are going to be able to implement this. I don't know if any of the counties are registered on this, but I think asking the early voting clerk to pull all of the ballots that have an address for a care facility can be very difficult. I don't know if there's like a set list of care facilities that HHSC provides. If there is, that would be great, but I still think it's adding a lot of work to the counties, and I'm worried about the feasibility of that during busy elections.
Thank you, Ms. French. Members, any questions? Thank you. The chair calls Jennifer Dornoff. You're Jennifer Dornoff. You are here on the Texas Association of County Elections Officials and yourself, and you are neutral on the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You may
Thank
begin.
you. So concerns that our members have are what you just heard, that there would be difficulty implementing this bill because there would be difficulty being able to identify those addresses as those applications come in, and keeping up with ones that close and ones that open. But I do understand that there is a list at HHSC, and so I feel like maybe if there were an addition to this bill that provided that HHSC and the state work together to identify those addresses in the state system of addresses, that maybe that would help carry this bill out more consistently from county to county. So that's just something I have that I would work with the author on.
Great. Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The chair calls Andrew Eller. You are Andrew Eller. You are SRECEI Committee and Secure Texas Election LP Subcommittee. And on behalf of yourself, and you are for the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct. We are for the bill.
You may begin, sir.
Okay. Yeah, this is in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this pretty short. I think Chair Shaheen laid it out quite well. This is protecting our vulnerable, part of our vulnerable population. And quite frankly, this is something that would be needed, I believe, and our group believes, that would actually help these guardians and those with durable power of attorney or medical power of attorney to understand what is going on with their loved one who is in the facility, and making sure that they completely know what is going on and that they are receiving a ballot. And there's not a privacy issue that with these types of ballots, because these mail ballots, this list of who gets mail ballots can be provided anyway upon request. So, and it's typically published on the websites anyway. So there's really not a privacy issue for any of this, and it's just a very simple bill. It does not disenfranchise anybody. It does not stop anybody from voting. It just lets the legal guardian or those with the power of attorney understand what's going on, and so they know that their loved one received a ballot, and if they need assistance or something, they can help them and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And it prevents the fraud that Chair Shaheen brought forward that has actually occurred.
Thank you, sir. Members, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Eller. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 760? Hearing none, because Senator Colcourse is worthy of two chairmen, the chair recognizes Chairman Shaheen and Chairman Leach to close on her bill, or their bill.
Okay, sure. Chairman Busey, members, and Chairman Shaheen as well. I appreciate the opportunity to lay this bill out. I do think it is addressing a real problem that could be becoming an increasingly prevalent problem. I also believe equally that there are some legit concerns brought up by some of these witnesses that that should be fairly, I don't want to use the word easy, but simple if we just lock arms and have some conversations over the next few days for us to address. And they and you have my commitment that I'm gonna do just that. So I would appreciate favorable consideration on this Senate bill, and I'm happy to have any questions or take questions. If not, I'll close.
Members, any questions? Yes, Representative Swanson.
I just want to say I think this is an excellent bill, and both of you did a really good job on no sleep. And I think it's a very creative way to try to fix the problem that we've all been concerned about for a long time about what goes on in the nursing homes. So thank you for bringing and sponsoring the bill.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Swanson.
Members, any other questions? Thank you,
Chairman.
Chairman, and we will close.
All right, thank you. I close. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. All right. If there is no objection, the bill will be left pending. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is left pending. Members, the chair moves that the committee stand in recess until final adjournment or recess of the House or during bill referral if permission is granted. Is there objection? Hearing none, the motion prevails. The committee stands in recess.